WD.
Hello, do you hear me? Yes. Well, thanks for being here. My name is Gerda Leopold. I am the CEO and founder of Amilux Film, Vienna. And yeah, and I'm here today to talk about entertainment. Doesn't say here. Okay. Entertainment, culture and technology. Yeah, together with and which is also the state of the Austrian XR scene. And yeah, I think the thing about projects and any kind of creative projects is that the place where they're created is setting the tone. And I think Vienna and Austria, you know, they have of course a certain impact on these projects because Austria has an interesting past, there was a lot of culture already created in former centuries, and so it's definitely so that it has a certain impact on new technology and projects created in new technologies. And with me here today are Alena Schmuck from the Vienna Business Agency. There is Stephanie Meisl, who is an AI artist, and she will give us insights about her work and the AI scene in Vienna and Salzburg. And then last not least, there's Rachel Bracker, who is from the United States, from Portland, Oregon. She came all the way here to AWE. Please welcome her. And she will mirror our thoughts and give us her US-American perspective. So let's immediately start getting into it, and let's talk, what are the projects here which are created here? And the expert on this is Alena.
Yeah, well, thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me today. As Gerda said, I'm working for the Vienna Business Agency, which is the Vienna business location agency. So we support all kinds of companies, entrepreneurs who want to start a business in Vienna, who want to do business in Vienna. And my role is in the creative industries department with a big focus on multimedia. So we have all kinds of offers ranging from workshops, counseling, to networking opportunities. We're also supporting our conference. And then, of course, the funding, which actually gets projects implemented. So I'm in the lucky position to be meeting a lot of really inspiring projects, founders, companies. Some are also here today. Shall I talk a bit about the culture and technology? Or, yeah. So the title of our panel today is Entertainment and Culture and Technology, and that has been a big focus for us at the Vienna Business Agency because obviously Vienna is a city that is known worldwide for its cultural heritage. We have a lot of really great museums, concert halls, theaters, but of course these cultural institutions have been facing challenges, not just since the pandemic, also before that, but these have of course become ever more pressing with the pandemic. This ranges from all kinds of challenges with digitizing their collections, digitalizing their offerings, and addressing new target groups. So at the Vienna Business Agency, we believe that creative professionals, digital creators, from XR to gaming to animation, AI, have a lot to contribute with to that. So we started a big focus on culture and technology a couple of years ago with a funding call, with a festival that we're organizing on that, the Creative Days, which are happening in June, by the way, as part of Vienna Up, and also a focus on interactive heritage, which is how I got to meet Gerda, for example, where we were looking for projects that are combining the topic of cultural heritage and negotiating that using or communicating that using digital technologies.
Yeah, I think the first project I ever saw was something like Klimt's Garden. So, I mean, you know, one can discuss the quality of it, but I mean, you know, it immediately attracted a lot of people in the museum to kind of go off and see it, and that really had something to do with it. So you know, people are interested in culture here, but want to see it, of course, in a completely new way. So what I would like to ask you, Alena, is also what projects do you have in mind who are actually also falling into this category?
Of dealing with cultural heritage.
Yeah.
Well, for example, last year at our Content Vienna competition for digital design, where we, which is a kind of a low threshold funding, where we give production grants of 10,000 euros to projects in that field. We, for example, were able to support, besides Gerda Leopold's films project Chile XR, which I believe you're going to talk about maybe a bit. We also got to support a project called Big Data and the Built Heritage of Vienna. So this is maybe not the first thing you think about when you think of cultural heritage. You think of all the great artists, the music that we have, but actually municipal housing is quite extraordinary in Vienna. The Wiener Gemeindebau started as a project in the 1920s to enable affordable housing, high-quality housing, and actually artist and architect Oliver Alunovic, he developed an artificial intelligence that makes this cultural heritage of the Wiener Gemeindebau accessible by using all of the open data of the city of Vienna on all of the implemented project, and he created a tool that not only makes it experienceable, but also enables architects to design quality housing with that. So it's also an architectural software, so to say. Another project that deals...
So what in this project, what is the aim of this project?
Well, the aim of the project is on the first hand to transmit this cultural heritage, to show what has been created in Vienna and how people have benefited from it, because this is also something that's quite unique for other cities. So there's a lot of people or have been in the past also coming to Vienna to learn about that. How does it work? So how do you make social housing, municipal housing affordable and of a good standard? And also, of course, to provide a tool to architects who want to design something. So it has both the communicative but also the practical approach.
Okay. So I would like to ask now Stephanie Meisl, so about her work. Can you talk a little bit about your way into artificial intelligence and what are you doing with it?
Of course. Thanks for having me and thanks for being here. So my journey started like in 2018-19 and I was doing research for micro-targeting, so I entered the stage from a rather dystopian point of view. It kind of made me delete all my Facebook algorithms because I experienced on myself like what algorithm can do if you go into the wrong direction. But I realized like we have to do something about it and I have to deal with the technology, and the best angle for me was like art. So from the art perspective it was easier, accessible for me, it didn't scare me so much, and in the end one of the biggest projects that I entered was like Chile's Ghost. That's why we're like having like this little relationship to each other. That's how we met. It was Egon Chile. And it started like in the pandemic, with a friend of mine who's actually a web developer and AI developer. And we had a lot of talks and about the technology because I'm not a developer at all. So, but I was interested in how to deal with this technology and what we can do with it. And so with this project we learned a lot, like what it means, what is big data, what we need, what is an algorithm, and what are we able to do with this whole situation. And in the end, there was like this big project coming up, and I learned with Schiele's Ghost, where we kind of trained a machine learning tool with Egon Schiele's pictures to recreate his style and create something new out of it. So I'm learning with the new technology, with art, like how it works, and make it explainable for everybody else, and opening a big discussion. Because for me, it's like very important to involve everybody around me with this new technology, and to create like a base to say like, okay, we can kind of help each other to explain things. And in the end, we came up with a group of people with Sarah Scherer and Shamin Sand. It's like we are all like in the art industries, and we said like, okay, we have to figure some way to deal with this new technologies coming up. So AI is one thing. Then we have like all the new media that is coming up. Like for example, social media can be a stage, or VR, like what can we do with a virtual space? Like how can we explore this together? And so we created like an artist collective that's called D'Avantgarde, and it's written #avant-garde, like the digital is looking for the avant-garde, like what does it all actually mean? Yeah, and in the end, we are also trying to build a bridge from the arts to the creative industries, because I'm basically coming from the film production industry, so I know all the creative industries background, so what it means to have a serious production, let's call it this way. And what can the creative industries kind of gain on together from our art perspective, and like our trials, what we can do with it. And for me, it's very important, because when I do art and when I play with these new technologies, I have no limitations like I had when I was in the creative industries, because in the creative industries, I always have like a client, and I have some expectations, and I have limitations, and I have certain rules that I have to keep. And in art, I can go a little bit further and explore a little bit more. Is it okay to right-click save data? And then I can ask and question it afterwards. Like, I ask myself the same questions like OpenAI right now is having. Is it okay to right-click save data from the internet and use it for a training model? And how do we deal with that in the future? And I think like there's so many questions that you gather while dealing with the new technology, and then you have to ask it, and then we have to put it back to the society and deal with it, because there's like a lot of new scopes and new ideas and new questions that arise. For example, like, is AI art? It's like, how do we deal with this kind of questions? And I think like a lot of them are not answered yet, and it's very exciting, and I'm very happy to be here to talk about this whole thing. So
what is, to come back, to immediately jump into that, so what do you think, if is AI art?
It depends.
Okay.
No, yesterday I had the same question and discussion about this topic with a company of the creative agency, and I said like, it's not art if you sit in front of the computer, type something in, push a button, say like, oh, I'm an artist right now. Because being an artist and throwing yourself into it, it's like a little bit more. So I consider my art more conceptual art, because I'm asking questions. I'm having a huge process that's kind of involved, and I'm kind of mirroring or reflecting the society and the situation we're having right now. So I think this is like a combination of all of it. Okay. So it's a little bit more than just like pushing a button.
Well, you and Alena, you said the magic words here, which is always the word, it always comes up, this word, and the word is called group. And, you know, I have the feeling that in XR, for example, when you have a virtual reality headset on, you're only a single person, but it's always about the group somehow. So what do you think about that, Rachel?
Oh, yeah, well, that's a very good point. Sort of our individual encounters with this technology, we have to bring it back to the group. And like you were saying, Stephanie, we're asking these questions now so that we can formulate our answers and then decide, yeah, is AI art? It's not such a simple answer. My perspective coming to VR comes from 360 filmmaking. That's what I do. I have a company called Hungry Mantis, and we do 360 video productions, and anything from filming an educational training experience to a documentary film.
everything in between. We do the filming and the editing, and also bringing VR to our audiences. And I really like using the technology of 360 for storytelling and sort of asking those same questions, like big questions about humanity through the lens of technology. And some of the work that I've done recently, I've been basically using 360 video to bring audiences to different subjects that are interesting. For example, I got to go to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory recently to film a Mars rover driver with the idea that we would then bring a day in her life to children and they could access it through VR headsets. So just a little bit about my background and how I got involved in the industry. And I know Gerda from her work as a VR filmmaker, and we worked on a documentary together called Through Darcel's Eyes that she was the executive producer on. And that's a 360 film that basically honors a drag queen that was very, very important in the LGBTQ community in Portland, Oregon. And you get to use VR to learn a little bit about her work in the community in the past and then also in the present. So using the technology to kind of examine who we are today, and then also like reimagining the past and getting people to engage with history can be such a great way to use the tech to ignite people's curiosity. And I know that's what a lot of us on the panel are doing. And I don't know, Gerda, would you like to do a little bit more about your background and your work too before we kick it off to?
Sure.
Yeah.
I was going to include this into a certain point. Yeah, but you've mentioned the word past. So, I mean, I found it rather interesting that I created in 2018, it was shown a VR 360 film which was called Bella Vita, and it was what I call a romantic fantasy about a girl who is in love with a guy, and they have a problem, and she runs away, and she then falls into the hand of a super who does magic tricks on her. So that was a fantasy, and the interesting thing was when I started to work on the project about the Austrian painter Egon Schiele, I could see a completely different reaction from people. I mean, this project is not finished yet, it's not out yet, we're in the middle of post-production. And because I could see that a lot of people, it creates in a lot of people a lot of reference points, because everybody in Austria has heard about it. Meanwhile, in this other project I did before, in it's called Bella Vita, you know, the people then saw it and then they got interested. But before that, there was no no interest. One had to tell them about the content. And that was really interesting. And I have seen it, I have experienced it myself with other projects when there are about, I don't know, like housing projects from Vienna from the 1920s. One has immediately a certain image in one's head. One has immediately a certain opinion about it. And it's the same with Schiele. I mean, with this painter, people have immediately an opinion about him. They say it, and they're interested and curious, of course, to see the work me and my team are creating. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if I will satisfy their, what I call, in German it's called Deutungshoheit, their sovereignty of opinion, because everybody, you know, I'm not sure if I can satisfy it, I hope, but maybe it's not going to work, maybe it's completely controversial to their ideas. So I think, but that is the really interesting thing about projects which deal with any kind of history, that you have an opinion before it. And what do you think about it?
To have an opinion about what we're doing or the art in itself. Yeah, that's what I experienced, and it was funny because every time I mentioned that something was created with AI, people are like, okay, now I can go wild. So people are criticizing the thing until there is nothing left. And I'm like, so okay, good. So I have the full scope of everybody's opinion with that. But likewise, I also asked the question, for example, like, can it evoke emotions? Because people back in the days, in 2021, when I started with the project, everybody was like, or the art scene was like, no, computer cannot create pictures that evoke emotions. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
To my family, like, okay, I tested it. So I printed them out, so I have like over 10,000 pieces of Schiele's Ghost, because you can endlessly, infinitely kind of push the button and create pictures. And I made a limit and a stop and said like, okay, that's enough, but I want to give it away for free. So I started with my family and printed out like 50 of them and told them like, choose the one that you actually wanted to hang on your walls at home, and even if it's just a toilet. And the result was that the people, or my family in the beginning, was like going crazy over it. And it's like pictures, when you look at them, some look nice, some don't look nice. You see something in it or not. It's like, it reminds you maybe a little bit of Schiele, if you really, you can feel it if you like to, so it's your interpretation. And everybody got wild. What I realized was like there was this emotional attachment to the pictures they chose. And they are still like having it, and they're like, okay, this is mine. And I was like, okay, that's funny. So people kind of got this emotional bond with it. And I realized now it's not the picture itself, it's like the meaning that we're giving to it. So it's us as a society, as people, who put something into art. And if we are not interpreting it, and if we are not kind of bond with the art, so it's just a picture. And yes, if a computer by itself just generates pictures, as long as there's nobody else behind this, or even if it's the audience giving it a meaning, it's worthless somehow.
I think that's so interesting, the audience reacting to the AI art. They're bringing their own experiences, your family's emotions, they're connecting to Schiele's Ghost. Like, you were challenging them, okay, you don't think that you're going to feel any emotion from a computer-generated image? Well, in fact, they did. Yeah, so that's very interesting. That makes me want to ask each one of you a question sort of about, we're talking about the influence of the past, but also your environment on the work that you create. And so could you each maybe answer the question of how does living here in this very rich cultural place influence your art and your creativity? Because, I think everyone would be excited to know how that has impacted your work.
Well, I mean, I think, and in my case, it was like this, that I first basically ran away from it, and I had really had enough of it, because, it drives you crazy, because you're actually, in the real sense of the word, you're really overwhelmed, and you feel, this is crazy. Where is the present? Where is the present, and where is the future? It's only, you live basically in a museum. But of course, you realize when you have an experience from the other parts of the world, you realize, of course, what there is, and then you kind of, with all your experience you have from the outside, which you have gained, you can start working with the content in within. And that was my way, because of course everybody said to me, oh, why don't you do a film about Schiele? And I thought, no, never. But I realized with all my, when I came, and that was the interesting thing, because when I came into the world of XR, I realized it was a great tool to make this person alive and bring this person, Egon Schiele, down from the pedestal and turn this person into a human being. Because in my experience, in my VR experience, you are actually able to talk with him, and he's asking you questions, and you have to answer back. So this immersive world, this immersivity, gives you immediately a very strong personal bonding to the person who is sitting opposite you. How is your experience with that?
Yeah, well, I'm not a creator myself. I'm a supporter of creations. I believe that as opposed to old media, digital, like books and films, digital media they just possess a lot of possibilities, narrative, artistic, technological, that can really immerse you in experiences of the past. They can give you a different way of looking at things. There's a lot of really great computer games, of course, dealing with also very sad chapters of history that just simply makes you experience it not firsthand, but in a very different way, I think, from just
to give you one example, for example, this amazing experience about Anne Frank's house, where you sit in the room and you are part of the family, and you realize what it was to sit there and be in your hidden place, so that no one sees you.
Yeah, so this is just something that I believe is still not exploited enough, also by cultural institutions. So I'm hoping there's going to be more.
Yeah, and additionally, like I've seen a little bit of Sheila XR already, and it's really like, so it's a completely different feeling that you have. Yeah, like you're not like in the distance, like when you watch a screen, you're kind of distant from something, but with this immersive technology, it really draws you into the whole situation, and so you're in the end, you imagine that he's really there, and you're really talking to him, and you have like a more stronger emotional reaction, I think. And this is like something that's, I think we are at the very, very beginning of what's possible in the future, and I think you do a lot for kind of bringing it to the people, and with all the stories that you're telling with it, it's like the very first step towards something that's kind of probably is a normal thing in 20 to 30 years from now.
Yeah, bringing it to audiences is so important as well, because it's like, and I think this is what's so interesting about using XR for examining our history and our past, is like it makes you question your relationship to that in the present, and when we're using these devices, it can really focus our attention to the present moment. And if we're going to be making work with these advanced technologies, we have to also do our part to bring the hardware to our audiences. And that's something too, like we were talking earlier about having a reference point to art, and how that reference point can help connect your audience to the work that you're creating. And since we're working in XR, there's a lot of newness about that. People could feel a bit of fear and unfamiliarity. Oh, AI, this is, maybe taking the copyright from artists. So in your work, Stephanie, like you're exploring that as an artist yourself to see, okay, well, what are these tools and how do I create with this? So then you can explain and kind of shepherd other people into, no, it's okay, we can, it's a tool that we're using, so we're figuring out the best way to use that, an effective way to use that. And that does make me have a question for Alena, sort of about the funding side of things. I think, and this is also a very sort of practical element of the work that we do as creatives as well. We want to make more work, and in order to do so, we need to have funding for this. And that's another reason that having a reference point could sort of help you have a built-in audience for your work, a community that's already interested to engage with the topic. Oh, yeah.
May I just add something to your question, because I think this is kind of going, how did you get up with this cultural heritage topic, or how do you get up with topics in initially? Because I think like this is a very, very interesting point, because this is something that you have to really do research and see like what is the society kind of needing and where are we standing. So I think like this is a very, very important part in this whole process.
Yeah, we really enjoy doing research. My colleagues and myself, we talk a lot to the people that we support, and we just we try to get around. So that's how we kind of get ideas for what could be interesting. And then, of course, as the Vienna Business Agency, we're always looking for what is already here in Vienna, and what are maybe also USPs, what are things that make Vienna special and that we should really build upon. So this is how the culture and technology came along, and we simply saw that, we're not in charge of museums at the Vienna Business Agency, of course, because that's part of the cultural department, but we simply saw that because we try to connect creative professionals and companies, and we simply saw that they could really benefit. The cultural institutions, they could really benefit from meeting these companies, seeing their approaches to how to do things. And to get to the funding part, it's maybe the most beautiful part of my job. We get to give. So, of course, we try to support projects that follow our vision. As the city of Vienna, also, we want to support projects that add value to the lives of people in Vienna, to the city of Vienna. So this is something we always watch out for. But generally, all our services are open to anybody, to any company, so free of charge. And as for the funding, it's all on our website. We offer funding for all kinds of companies, and in the creative industries, we have cash funding of up to 150,000 euros. So it's not a loan, you do not have to pay it back. You simply submit, well, ideally, you look at the programs that we have, you get in touch with us, set up a call, a personal meeting, and tell us about your project, and we try to help you find the right funding offer. Then you submit your materials, like a project description, business plan, team description, and so on. And then we have very competent juries who are also experts from the industry, and then we try to pick the right projects that we believe will bring value. And yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also maybe curious to hear, maybe Gerda and Stephanie, you could speak a little bit about a current project and sort of like as a case study example of how it was funded, and maybe, I could sort of kick this off. So we're talking about engagement in the community, and a lot of the work that I do, like the best way to get it funded is to have an audience that's already interested in that particular topic that would then want to branch out and experience it in VR. So I'm working on a documentary series about women in aviation and aerospace, and there's already such a huge community that's interested in those stories. And so when, creating... How does
this series get funded?
How does it get funded? Exactly. So there's nonprofits that exist, at least in the state of Oregon, there's different nonprofits that exist to sort of raise awareness for STEM education for youth. And I got connected with some of those nonprofits by going to meetups for women in aviation and female pilots. And I would just go to these community meetups and bring a VR headset and show them some of the things that I'd been working on. And immediately the interest was there. Oh, this is such a cool way of showing what we do and presenting it to...
Well, virtual reality is really made for flying.
Yeah.
I mean, to sit in an aeroplane, to sit in a cockpit is amazing in virtual reality.
So
I mean,
yeah.
You find the world is at your feet. So,
yeah.
And for everyone who is scared of heights, it's a good training.
It can feel a little safer, and a lot of people get into aviation by taking a discovery flight, and that's sort of their first entry point into why flying is so exciting. But that's obviously expensive, and it's not easy for everybody to access that. So VR is also a really great tool for just making that more accessible to more people. But yeah, I would go to these different special interest community meetups and bring the tech there, and then just meet different leaders in the community who were excited about, oh, we could use this to help sort of expose children to what's so great about aviation and aerospace. And so I got connected with a nonprofit called Airway Science for Kids, and then Women in Aviation International is a really great organization that has chapters all over the world, and the president of the Portland, Vancouver chapter was interested in this work too. So we got funding to travel and to film, and then also to get some headsets. And so having that shared touch point or entry point can be really helpful to get that funding. And then I think from there, having that public, having a location-based event is quite helpful too, just to bring people together. It brings a lot of excitement and engagement. So I think that's really important as well, planning what is the public presentation of the work is so crucial. But yeah.
Well, it's of course good if you have, a whole community which is, supporting the whole subject. When you have girls in aviation, that is of course, that brings a lot of people together, especially in a country as huge as the United States. So you have a lot of girls there.
Yeah, a big audience that we can try to reach.
No, but it goes to show that actually, if you get the right subject, you raise a lot of interest, and then you get the funding.
Yeah, versus the flip side of that, when it's we're making an experimental film, a dance film in VR, and we'll show it to people and try to get funding for that project. And that's a lot more challenging because I think it's a little more challenging for the audience to really wrap their heads around what is this experience. But also, that's probably a challenge of art in general, right? Like if we want to bring great art to the public, sometimes it will challenge them, and that's what they're seeking in that experience. So having a good mix of things that are, you know, what people expect, and then subverting their expectations. That's all about that's the artistic process. But I'd love to hear from...
yeah, look, what I would like to say is, for example, what I found very interesting in the beginning when I started off with Schiele, a lot of people said to me, why don't you do crowdfunding or Kickstarter or whatever? And I said, I don't believe in that, and for that subject, because it's not going to work. Because Schiele is known, but he's not raising a general interest that people really want to see that film in general. I mean, and so I decided against the crowdfunding event. It would have been different if it was like, there was a very famous film in Berlin about a bar which everybody went to and frequented, and then the house was torn down, so the bar vanished. So the interest to recreate it in film was of course huge, because a whole generation lived of this bar and had lots of experiences there. So the crowdfunding campaign was of course a huge success. So I guess one really has to choose one's right subject for that.
Yeah, right, to have that built-in interest.
Yeah, but no, in our case with Schiele, we got some funding from basically a lot of funding from Germany, because we worked together with two German co-productions, and we got some money from Lower Austria, from the country around Vienna. So that was that. But I mean, there is now finally a first XR incentive since the beginning of this year, where people can apply with their projects. And the good thing, in German you say it has no roof, meaning you can apply anytime, and there is no, the funding is not closed.
Oh, that's
so
great.
Yeah, but it's not easy. I mean, it's not. It sounds great, but it's not as easy as one thinks.
Yeah, it's always a bit competitive.
Yeah. So, how is your experience, Stephanie, with funding?
That's a tricky question. So now, the major funding that I got was like the Media Arts Award in Salzburg in 2021 for another project. But this kind of opened the financial base to continue working on the whole thing. So Schieles Ghost, for example, is like, it's not funded at all, but I'm using it as a case study. So the return of invest comes from my job now, where I'm using this case study to explain to the creative industry people in workshops how AI and all those tools and the technology actually works. Because this is kind of something that makes it possible for me to explain it in a not so abstract way, because it's like something that's already been done and people can associate with it and they kind of understand it a little bit better. So I found like ways to make it usable for my actual work in the end. So this is the one part, and the other part that I'm doing is like, everybody knows being an artist is very, very exhausting. You have to be a manager, you have to be a marketing director, you have to be a PR person, you have to go to exhibitions, you have to do the networking, you have to do a lot of things. And usually it's like that, like with every other artist, you have no money. So how do you deal with that? So for me, my challenge and my obstacle is like, can we use AI tools to make this boring tasks easier for artists? Because artists are like, actually never, it's like the devil is avoiding the holy water, saying like, no, don't touch this. I want to go as far as possible from this topic. But it's something that you have to do, and what I realized is like, you have to show up, you have to be there, you have to expose the art yourself and create the story constantly. Because if you don't do that, and if you're just like at home in front of your computer or in front of your canvas painting something like that, and if you're not showing it to the other people, it's turning into a meaningless thing. And then it's like, yeah, my mom is pleased when I'm giving her my art, but if I want to be an artist, I have to be out there and I have to bring it to the people and get the feedback from them and see what the world is doing with it, because art is like an interaction with me as the artist, the art and society in the end. And if this triangle is not there, it's not art in the end. So I asked ChatGPT, imagine being a Fortune 500 art consultant and provide me like some ideas and strategies to help me gathering money from my art. Like, how can I make the price thing? Should I do merchandising or not? And what should I write in a PR letter or whatever? And it helps me. So it's like I'm kind of working on it, and I'm using the technology to go a little bit further and further and further. I'm not expecting miracles, because I'm like, no, it should be coming from inside, and with the time and with the management we're having. So I have to stop now.
You have to stop now, because I have to ask you all the last question, and we have only 45 seconds left. So, Alena, what are you hoping in for the future with XR and projects?
Well, I'm hoping that it's going to become more accessible for people, so that, because this is, I think, still an obstacle, so that the projects that we support at the Vienna Business Agency will get used by a lot of people.
Sorry, the question was the future project.
Yeah, what are you hoping for the future?
I'm hoping that I can build the House of the Avant-Garde in a VR space, because this is my dream, because I'm like fed of boring web pages. So I like the VR place, like when you have like a house and we have different rooms, and so this is like my dream for the future.
I hope I can have an attitude towards AI like you do, Stephanie. Honestly, like I really like how you embrace the tool, dive in, and use it to sort of assuage any fears you have about a more dystopian future. So I'm going to have a more positive outlook on AI.
Okay, and I'm hoping that VR projects are getting finally getting the recoupment, bringing some money back to the creators. That's what I'm hoping for the future. So now we're open for questions.
Robert. Hey, thank you so much. That was really fascinating. Quick question. Maybe this leans towards Stephanie. What advice would you give to young and up-and-coming artists that have the potential to be the next Egon Schiele, but feel they're competing unfairly with Midjourney and potentially dead artists that never go away?
So my advice would be like explore the new technologies and find your own style and your own angle towards it, because I've seen like some new artists that are rising, and for example, right now I'm super fascinated by Yu Schnee. She's a Vienna. Right now she lives in Vienna, but she was in Berlin the last years, and she's making art in 3D space, sometimes with AI, and then she's painting it and then putting another layer in VR over it. So she's kind of creating a completely new world, and I was like, I don't know if I like it, but it's kind of, I got drawn to it, and I was like exploring her world and their point of view. And so it was like, the more I dive into her world, the more I'm kind of seeing something that she might see in the whole thing and the whole art that she's doing. So, and I'm trying to get it from this perspective, not by getting it explained by her. I'm not reading anything about it, because I'm like, I just want to see the art and her exposure to the world, as we said before. And so my part is like experiencing this world. So I'm like, for young artists, it's just like, do your thing and stick with it and use the new technologies, and don't see it as a competition, but see it as something that's supporting you, and yeah, something like that. Anybody else?
Hi. Quick question maybe to the whole panel, or maybe more towards Rachel and Gerda. This is a personal curiosity of mine. Since movie production is such a so popular form of art, perhaps the most popular one, due to being easy to consume. It's cheap and it's very accessible. I was just wondering, from your perspective, why hasn't big movie production studios, in Corps, didn't hop into the bandwagon and started producing movies for the big screen in VR? And is that my initial gut feeling? Guess would be that we haven't reached the critical mass of users yet to make that financially interesting for those big studios. But that's just me guessing, and I wondered what's your perception behind it, and what could be, because VR is not as new, right? It's been out there for at least a decade now, and why haven't we seen yet a big production from a big studio? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think that's a great question, and I feel disappointed a lot of the times that we don't have, more of a critical mass in terms of having an audience that's ready to watch VR films. I think the audience is there, but they don't have the headset at home, or maybe they don't know that they could watch a lot of films on a VR headset. But to answer that question, I feel like there's a lot of reasons. One, I feel like the traditional film world maybe doesn't see that there's going to be a return on investment for the amount of money that needs to be spent to create even like a 20-minute experience in VR to that high production standard. The cost would be a lot, and then how do they monetize that distribution? That part of it doesn't really feel established at all. And if you have Netflix in VR and a way for people to stream that content easily and go in there and find their favorite films, it can be hard to get in VR and find the films you want to see. And I'm speaking just from my experience of using, a Meta Quest 2. That's the device that I have, and that's what I use when I'm in the office to watch different works. And sometimes it's hard for me to find what I want to find on there, just through the search bar, or, the app has changed a little bit, and so now the films that I was used to seeing on maybe the earlier Quest or even the Go, they're not there anymore. So I think the cost and the lack of like a clear return on investment for those projects is maybe one of the reasons. I know too, like when I'm in VR for an hour, my head hurts and it's a bit uncomfortable and the battery's dying, so there could be maybe a few hardware limitations that are a factor as well. But when the story is good, it does feel like time flies. So I kind of feel like the people who understand the impact of VR filmmaking are not the same people who are in charge of investing in the productions. Like those folks are a lot more risk averse when it comes to that. And maybe until we see one of the major streaming platforms really make a big investment and we're going to house VR content, maybe until then, I'm not sure we'll see a lot of the bigger studios wanting to make feature films. But I do feel like a lot of directors have tried, and they've tried something, okay, it's a 10-minute experience and it has A-list actors in it and full production, and they spend a lot of money on it, and then where does it go from there? So that's something I think about a lot and just feel disappointed that we're not at that stage yet. But there are a lot of great VR films already in existence and out there, and I wish it was easier to just put on the headset and see them and watch them. I know the question was also directed to you, Gerda. So.
Well, to say it very simply, because it's not film, it's something else. And we are here at the moment in the 1920s, considering VR production. So we still have to kind of find our language a bit, and we still have to kind of, get the right distribution going. And I think that's why.
Hi, I would like to know which is your position towards intellectual property and the creation of a new piece of art with artificial intelligence. I come from Chile, South America, and artists and the cultural institution were talking about how to deal with intellectual property and the co-creation of a new piece of art with artificial intelligence. What is the law here? How is the law here in Europe? But also, which is your position in terms of using the intellectual property also as a commercial strategy? Maybe
they're about to create a law about it, about the intellectual property with artificial intelligence creations. So there will be actually quite a lot of legislation about it. If it really works, we'll see.
Yeah, I heard, I'm not an expert on that, but I recently attended a panel where they were saying that by Austrian law, I think, it was super complicated because they were dealing with a project on Beethoven, an AI, probably heard about it, an AI composing music in the style of Beethoven, and they were also talking about what is it, what copyright applies. So there's a lot of negotiations because computer software makes the, is the AI, that it was written by people, but it's also like a work of literature by Austrian law, so it's super complicated. But then it's music that comes out of it, so I don't know, you probably know more.
A little bit more, like Gerda said, like it's all in the negotiation thing right now. I think Europe is a little bit looking towards the US. What is the US saying at the moment? At the very moment, the copyright is saying like if it's produced or generated by AI or by a computer, there is no copyright on it. So literally everything that's created or produced right now, you could use for yourself, print and distribute. Go crazy, like take Shoeless Ghost, go crazy. With the data set, it's different, and I think this is something that we have to take care of. And Egon Schiele was a thankful artist that I used because he's dead. He has more than 70 years, so there's like no copyright claims, there's no family behind that could do something about it. But I'm totally aware that going to the Career Research Institute's website and right-click save all the digitalized pictures, this is the question. This is the question that we all have to ask ourselves, like, is this okay? Because this is actually what OpenAI, Midjourney, and all the other big data companies did. So they kind of scraped the internet and downloaded everything and made it accessible for the algorithms. And if you use it for research, it's okay, but right now we're entering a new level. So I doubt it's research anymore. So we have to find a way, and this is like, it's not them or it's not the law, it's I think all of us, we have to make a common sense about that. And I think everybody's voice should be heard and not only the ones who are making laws. So that's my point of view for that.
Well, I know Getty Images has sued about this. For large language learning models and the image generators using their stock imagery without attribution. So I think attribution in IP is so important, especially for the integrity of artists and them to make a career out of what they do. So we'll see what happens with that lawsuit as it proceeds. And Adobe, they're training their AI generator on photos that they own the copyright to. So I think that's how they're trying to navigate that. But it'll be interesting to see what results.
Yeah, I think for Adobe and the whole stock thing, there's still this but because they have like the stock platform where people initially uploaded their pictures.
Yeah, they didn't know.
And nobody is saying something about this because right now, and this is the same like with the voices and everything, like all big production companies that own the pictures, the voices, the texts and whatever. So this is like where everybody's kind of saying like, no, we have to stop that. Yeah. Because I'm like, there have been laws before, and now we have like a new situation. We have to reconsider all of this, and we cannot use the old contracts and say like, oh, you just signed it 10 years ago, and it's gonna be fine. So exactly. It's a little smelly.
Yes, well, unfortunately, our time, we have to wrap up here, and let's talk in private about all this. We are very happy to answer more questions. Thank you very much for being here.
Guys, many thanks. I have a few takeaways. The first one is that we need another panel about copyright because it's fascinating, but we need more time. The second takeaway is I've worked in Austria for a while now, and it's fascinating to see the dialogue that exists constantly about the culture, the history, which is so fantastic and is inspiring everyone worldwide for centuries, and the technology and the work that you guys are doing on the innovation side. So thank you for your insights. Keep pushing this amazing stuff. Many thanks. Yeah.